we doing today, Graham?
Yeah, great.
Great. Did you manage to see the political launch of the Labour Party?
I don't have a TV. I heard it, and you know, there'll be a lot more about it. It's completely monotonous. I mean, it's like, it's basically, you know, Tory Mark II. Anyway, here we are. Here's something interesting.
You know what? You know what's funny about
It's
that?
a real Labour Party.
They made mention. I actually watched it. Right. I watched it today, and they made mention of Jeremy Corbyn. In the launch of the manifesto.
Well, they would, because he has a permanent room in Keir Smarmy's head. He actually lives there for free in Keir Smarmy's head. Keir Smarmy, right, can never forget him. I don't know whether it's a guilty conscience or what it is, you know, but for some reason, right, and Corbyn, right, is so busy dealing with the issues, you know, that and policies and things like that. He's got no time to pull out all the knives that Smarmy's put in his back, along with all the other people who Smarmy supports.
I'll tell you what happened. I was speaking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks back, and I said to him, listen, I got to get a couple of the Corbyn banners, right? And he said, oh, you'll see about it. And then a couple of days ago, I was going down to my local shop, my local supermarket, and I see a gentleman across the road talking to another. I said, oh, are you my local MP? Walked over, it's Jeremy Corbyn.
Wow.
Have you got any banners? He says, yeah. He goes, oh, we'll take you. Then he goes, yeah. And he took out 3 of them out of his pocket. And this is the third one here. The second one, the other 2 is actually in my window. And to my surprise, a day later, when I'm walking down the high street, one in about every 10 shops actually got vote Corbyn in the shop. So that kind of made me feel a bit proud.
Who's the idiotic who's the idiotic nobody who's going to be chosen to stand against him?
Oh, he's already been chosen.
Yeah, what's its name? What's it?
It's an Indian chappie. I remember seeing that in somebody's window on Sunday, you know.
Has he got a good battery? Is it plugged into the mains, or does it run on its own?
Well, we have yet.
Yeah, what his name? Come on, the name. Name.
Yeah,
Name.
I'm not really good at names.
Mahatma. What's his name?
Yeah.
No.
So
Narendra.
Yeah. So today, the leader of the Labour Party, sorry, the Conservative, is now at the G7 meeting today.
Yeah.
It's in Italy.
You mean the Conservative Party #1?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Rishi Sunak.
Sunak.
Well,
Rich Sunak.
Well,
he's very, 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 very rich.
Yeah, I was listening to some commentator today, and he was saying it was like a boxing match, and there's a time where you have to throw in the towel, and he's been beaten every press conference he's had. It looks like he's already lost the fight. He's been beaten and punched, and there's a point where you go chuck in the towel. So some people can actually sense that. Tell me about Nigel Farage, the comeback of Farage, because remember...
Well, what I want to know, right, is Suella Braverman was a vampire and looked like a vampire. I mean, just look at her face. She looked like a vampire. But how come Nigel Farage is part of the vampire family? I mean, he has a vampirical view of history, right? Not empire, not empirical, vampirical. Now, how come you can have a member of the vampire family that has a head of a frog, big eyes, big mouth, rabbit? He's been going to be given more publicity because he's the next head of the Conservative Party #1.
Have you Have you bought him any ice cream lately? Milkshake, no, sorry, milkshake. Have you bought him a milkshake?
I've heard it was banana. Those milkshakes, they're good for you.
Yeah, and did you hear about the one about the cement? That's,
No,
that's,
no.
that's when he was on the bus. The guy, he was up on the bus, right, and he's looking down, and
Maybe you want to save his marriage to cement his relationship.
they were going past a sort of building site on the a building being built, and then some guy was looking up and had a great idea to run, go grab the cement and just fling it up at him. So he's he's lucky. He's getting a tremendous amount of attention.
I certainly wouldn't endorse that kind of behaviour,
Yeah.
but it's fantastic,
I know.
lovely.
Yeah, well, but yeah. But nobody's actually said to him, how is Brexit going? I think one of the biggest downfall he's going to have is that when people ask him about Brexit,
But actually, some Tory MP on Radio 4 said yesterday evening that a lot of there's a lot of regret amongst the Leavers. It seems to me that because the Leavers were quite happy and the Remainers were down, but it actually seems that they haven't got the Brexit they want, whatever that means in their strange fantasy, and they seem to he's nobody's Brexity enough. It's very funny. They're very unhappy. Plus, all the things that they were promised on the side of a bus haven't happened.
yeah,
It's very strange.
the 36 million a year for the NHS and the NHS. But before we go on to that, there is a party in this current race that's blatantly came out and said that they're going to rejoin
The Lib Dems.
the Lib Dems.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great.
You
Not a Lib Dem, but I do think that's good.
yeah, so they've come out straight and said it. Is it who's the leader? I'm thinking of Tim Farron. Is that his name? No, that's head of
Davey or something.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, the man, the stunt man.
Yeah, that's all he's doing. He's
Stunts,
he's
yeah.
He's trying to pull off the sort of Boris stunts.
Well, look, Farrago, right? Count Farrago, right? Did the brilliant one going into the jungle and speaking to people under the age of 60, who he normally doesn't meet. I mean, he went in there and he ate some kangaroo's testicles and ants and things like that, and he went on there and like lots of other sort of MPs have done before him and made themselves special. Man of the people, like Tarzan. Tarzan of the people.
Yeah, but the strategy.
Well, it's to do with advertising, isn't it?
Right.
He's going to advertise his way into the Tory party and be head of it through advertising. I mean, after all, wasn't his uncle Donald Trumpus? Wasn't he made famous through a television show or something?
Yeah.
So don't isn't that the way of the populism? Isn't that one of the main populist techniques?
But this centre right. This centre right thing. This right.
Centre right? I thought it was far right and further right.
Right. This kind of like sheep's in wolf clothing.
Well, Farrago is a wolf in wolf's clothing.
I hear you. And he's only a couple of points behind the Conservative,
But you see, that was the core. Basically the core of the Conservative Party. They won't go out of their their echo chamber.
Mm.
They won't do brilliantly. They're doing well because they are the actual Conservative Party members. It's bigotry, wall-to-wall bigotry. So a lot of working class, lower middle class, or should I say, like Tory voters, are basically glued to the Tory party through bigotry, because they're not rich, and they're not going to be rich, and it's not in their economic interests, even though they've thrown a few scraps, and home ownership and things like that, but like flag waving and xenophobia and anti-foreignerness, and hatred towards foreigners and modernity and women and homosexuals and people who are in any way interesting, different.
Who was that MP? The Rivers of
Blood. Rivers of Blood.
Yeah. Enoch Powell.
Mm-hmm.
And what party did he belong to?
He was in the Conservative Party.
And this I'm beginning
But
to...
so was Farrago. Farrago
Yeah.
was in the Conservative Party, then he left, and obviously he's playing. Obviously he might have left because he thought he couldn't be head of it.
Right, but you see, is this right? Yeah, it's this right-wing thing. What does that really mean? They're racist. I mean,
It's all right. Most of the Brexit vote was racist dog whistle, and they go on about sovereignty, but take away the word sovereignty, racism, xenophobia, racism, whatever you want, bigotry, and anti-modernity. It's it's racism, but it's also anti-modernity. It's looking back to the golden age. All the populists, Viktor Orban and Meloni and the AfD and Marine Le Pen, they're looking back, Erdogan, Modi, they're all, looking back to the golden age, where people were all united under the king, or a king-like figure, and life was easy. There wasn't anxieties, because at the moment, the world's very fragmented, with extreme capitalism is fragmented, rich and poor, and people moving around the globe, and people moving from place to place, and a lot of people are living with not only with lots of problems and complications and lack of communication because everything's done through the internet rather than meeting, so people are feeling lost and lonely and fragmented and that. I think in sociology, I remember there was a sociologist called Durkheim, a right-wing sociologist, Emil Durkheim, called anomie, which is a strange. It wasn't the same as Marx's concept of alienation. Anomie was a people. It had its conservative basis to it, although he didn't express it in that way. That people felt lost, and then they wanted to join together, to coalesce into group solidarity. But not group solidarity in a kind of like freedom-like way, where people join unions or housing associations, through their interests, but a sort of medieval family kind of way, like a kind of Richard III, unity, where everyone's together under one banner or one god or one,
what worries
one
me?
leader.
Yeah, what worries me is that
It takes away anxiety, but it does take away anxiety, because authoritarianism does take away people's anxiety, because they no longer have to think for themselves.
and their freedoms.
Yeah, freedom comes with anxiety. Imagine having lots of choices makes people very, very confused. You see what it's like when they're waiting for a bus, they're very, very confused. There's lots of buses to choose from. If they were in a village in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Sahara, and there was only one bus came every once a day, and went off.
You mean once a year in Sahara?
Well, yeah, exactly. Whatever you want to call it. That would take away a lot of anxiety. See, this is a modern problem of the modern world: anxiety. and it's uncomfortable. But with anxiety is also a byproduct of the freedom of choice. The two things can't be separated. But in a simplistic way, you know, these great like heroes come down from the heavens and magically will take people's anxiety. Promise to take people's anxiety. And the way they're going to do it is by as they start off with this anti-establishment word, and they become the establishment times 10 and clamp down on them so that they don't have anxiety. After all, prisoners don't have a lot of anxiety until they leave. Their anxiety begins when on their release day, because then they have to think, what do I get food, will I get shelter, what do I do, how do I relate to other people? But when they're in jail, they don't feel lots of anxiety. And soldiers in a war don't feel too much anxiety because they just think of how they're going to live to the next day. This is the magic trick. But of course, there's nothing really wrong with having anxiety. It's part of being alive.
Yeah,
That's why there's so many therapists around. People want to, you know, anxiety can be dealt with.
They did. I mean, a few elections back, they had this thing called Worcestershire man or woman, right? And somebody made mention in one of Rishi's press conferences about white van man, right? I don't know what the typical British voter is like, and if they were if they voted Conservative last time, and you've got a hint of Farage in there, right? And you know, the rivers of Babylon. It's really a real high level of deception deep down in this conservative psyche. They really don't like foreigners. They really don't like
foreigners.
They really don't.
No.
Right? But there is a lot of them on the front bench in the Conservative Party, right? And now, as Richie,
well, that was the trick. You'll find even amongst the populists, even probably amongst the Rassemblement, National Rassemblement, you know, the National Rally. They've probably got some, you know, multicoloured figures, probably amongst, and they have it in the MAGA party, and they have it, yeah. Maybe you won't find it in places like Hungary or Turkey or somewhere where they're more sort of old-fashioned. But a lot of the populist right, who are a bit more sophisticated, can put in some different coloured faces in, as to cover what their real intention. And these people then do the patriotism.
yeah.
And no one can and no one can say anything about it, because obviously look at them. They're, you know, how can you?
Do you know,
it's a double bluff.
Do you know one of the prominent people in?
But Farage gave it away because over the D-Day thing, his dog whistle against Sunak and his skin colour, and how clever it was that he's not really patriotic. And I thought, that's interesting. He's now throwing him under the bus. Somebody who helped make him.
Right,
What he is.
And that dog
The man who actually wants to do the deportations to Rwanda and everything that you know, basically, you know, and do everything that Farage and Tommy Robinson would love to do. He's actually like the Light of the Long Knives, right? Like the SS did to the SA, you know, but in a more sophisticated way, not in such a simple way. But it basically, so the man's been the sort of Machiavellian intrigue. He's now saying, right, whatever Sushnik does, he's still not British, not white.
Yeah.
But I remember there was I saw a video. I think it was on TYT, and there was a right-wing MAGA woman who was talking about Ramaswamy, right? One of the an Indian Trump follower who you know whose nose was browner than hell from Donald's bottom. He you know, he claimed him to be wonderful, and she said yes, everything he's saying was great, and then she said the only reason I wouldn't vote for you is because you're an Indian. So she said it openly, not even a dog whistle. But basically, for what Farage was saying was a more sneaky version of that.
Yeah.
But basically, that's what he meant. That's how it came out. Because what else could he have been meaning? What else could he have been meaning?
Yeah, and this is an.
Because is he not a patriot?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't he give him credits for the Rwanda flights? Doesn't he give him credits for the stopping the boats 10 times a day? Doesn't he took Neanderthal? He let Neanderthal out of the cage and gave him everything he wanted.
And Farage wants Rishi to be on the first plane
to
Rwanda.
Rwanda, yeah.
And Rishi was the one who made it all happen. If
Well,
you see what I mean.
The irony of history.
You see, this is
Irony, history hopefully won't repeat itself, but it tends to.
But so, how do you think? You think they're going to be more conservative? They're going to go and vote for what do they call themselves? Reform or?
Look. It's simple arithmetic, right? You've got if you've got 100, right. Say you've got 100, bigots, right? Right. So you can have 70 conservative, 30 reform.
Yeah.
You can have 80 reform. So 80 conservatives, 20 reform. You can have 60 conservatives and 40 reform. But the 100 is the 100.
Yeah.
So that that's so it's not that sophisticated, is it? That's their ceiling.
Well, it may be. It's going to be interesting from my point of view, because what it is.
I mean, there are people around who have a little bit of bigotry, but I mean, those people, right? Bigotry is not enough for them to actually be interested in either Tory or Reform. They basically want more social equality, and they want better public services.
That's what's at the bottom of their mind. But they've been brainwashed. They've been convinced that the causes why they don't have that is because of Johnny Foreigner.
Well, Farage hasn't told these poor fools yet that he would love them to have an American medical system, which they can't afford. Which not only does it not work, but actually means that their hospital appointments will never exist. In fact, they will have zero waiting times, because they won't be able to get the national. They won't be able to get the insurance, right, to actually see any doctor at all, or dentist, or God knows, or anything. That's what they meant by zero.
Yeah. Have you heard that one of the policies that they're enacting at the moment is that they're trying to get two of the policies. What the first policy is they're trying to get all the unemployed to do the work, get them off and get them to do the jobs that.
But I think under Duncan Smith he tried that, and it just came to a sticky halt, because there was compulsory work for unemployed people, and I remember there was a lot of these companies doing it, and there was one company called Action for Employment, right, that just ended up collapsing the whole pack of cards, because they were so corrupt, they were taking their own stuff on, so they quietly dropped all that. So
Well, they revamped it probably just for the election, right? And the other thing they've said is that there's going to be conscription, right? So, you know, so the Conservative wants conscription, and
It ain't our fault, man.
yeah, but how does the voting? I'm trying to figure out what the typical
Stand by your beds.
yeah
Remember,
typical.
it ain't our fault. You remember that comedy? That national service comedy?
Or maybe it's not.
With that Welsh sergeant.
But the Conservative dog whistle to their people.
I think that wasn't even a dog whistle. I think that was quite open. I think it was almost American style.
Yeah,
I
but
think he forgot to be sophisticated, and by coming out with that, he's entered the Margaland.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, but I am. It looks like
he's actually gone one better than Trump. And gone according for national service.
yeah. All right. Yeah. So what do you?
Wasn't that after the Rwanda scheme collapsed that he came out with that? Wasn't I thought that Rwanda scheme was supposed to be the coup de grace, so that was meant to be the what was it, Churchillian sort of Enoch Powell sort of like fantasy. I don't know, wasn't it?
So from where you stand, right here, where do you see? What do you feel that the election results are going to be?
I think Labour will do well in the small towns that hate the Tories. They won't. They actually I don't think they'll do well by just being there, by saying nothing and by not being Tories. The Tories will do badly. This is what I think. I don't know. Who knows? But and I think in the inner cities where people got, you know, the more sophisticated and mixed people are, that will go independent and green. See, I've noticed lately the Green Party have been attacked in the same Corbynistic way. I've been Corbyned, and they're being so it's they're using the anti-Semitism thing against them, and they're and they're trying to use which they never did before, and they're trying to say that they're too left wing and things which they never said before, because before they said they were too woolly minded and anti-industrial and things like that. Of course, they'll use the old bigotry against the Greens about wanting to Luddites wanting to anti-industrial, and then they'll use the new bigotry of being like anti-Israel and also and not caring where the money comes from and just spreading it all about.
And a lot of councillors, Labour councillors have resigned because of Starmer's.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of days ago, a lot of them resigned in Chingford, and because Faiza Shaheen said she would go
Green,
independent, and they probably a lot of them resigned en masse there. So and there'll be more and more and more, especially in the urban areas.
So how do you see?
And that's before the election. There might be followed by like in the other areas later, and it might be the beginning of a new left-wing party. I can see them coalescing in the future into a left-wing party. The French left-wing parties who were at each other's throats, like the Heinz 47 varieties of the English sort of far left. Right, was always going on about acronyms. I'm from the ASWNTU, but they're now coalescing. And in France, they said we're going to coalesce, to be against because of Le Pen. So I can see that happening after the election. I think people I think people are so fed up with the Tories that they won't be thinking about what will happen afterwards. But their expectations are very high, and they won't be met because they'll be told, "Oh, because of lack of money, we won't be able to help the NHS, and we won't be able to build council houses and all these things." So this silence, right, which people will delude themselves as something sophisticated, will turn into the self-fulfilling prophecy of actually being a safe pair of hands and doing nothing, and not building anything, and just carrying on the Tory policy, but with less brutal style and more socially liberal. I mean, there'll probably be less of a culture war, which is wonderful. But the poverty, which is grinding people, won't change.
See, it's a good thing that you didn't see the Labour manifesto launch today.
Okay, tell me, was anything good in it?
Well, the presentation.
Were there any chocolates for us?
No, it was rather bland, right? So it was just regurgitating.
Well, they're not going to tax the rich. Only the Greens say they want to tax the rich, don't they?
Well,
they're the only people who are socialists that are left, really.
Yeah. All right. So two of the things you just mentioned was two of the things they actually highlighted, and they did a really good presentation in the sense that before Starmer came on, we had a guy that came on who was him, his wife, 2 kids were staying in a 1-bedroom flat, and he came up and he took the podium, and he was talking about his.
Oh, that one.
He was talking about his housing situation, right? And you know, that's why change. That's why he's gonna.
Let's go.
That's why he's gonna join the Labour Party. And then he had another chap who came up and he says, "I'm suffering from cancer, and I won't live too long." And one of the reasons were he waited too long for his appointment, and you know you got to wait so long for it. And he says, well, he's got lymph node, bowel cancer, and he spread all. And he says he's going to be inevitably he's going to be dead, but he still says he'll be actually working and hoping that the next generation don't suffer what he suffered, and that is why I am in the Labour camp. And so the presentation was really good. Those two people, right, it was really tear-jerking, heart-tugging, right? But back to the reality. You see, afterwards, when I was listening to the other commentators, exactly what I was saying, and I have been saying, the government can't pay the bills, right? When the Conservatives said that...
Well, it's mathematics again. If you don't tax the super rich, the only answer is to have more austerity and more cuts, because the equation has to balance out. You know, obviously, when Smarmy, you know, Sir Smarmy said that he's that he first of all balanced the books. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah, logic. But then he's not going to tax the rich, corporation tax and all these other things. Oh right, okay. And he wants to be pro business and whatnot. Oh, okay, right. So then, right, what's unspoken, what he and when he says, well, okay. What's this, John Curtis? You know, the resolution, these other foundations, stretching from left to liberal, right? Say, okay, you know, well then obviously, in reality, it's either you tax the rich, you borrow, right, which you don't want to do, right, or you make cuts, and then they're silent on the cuts. That's obvious, isn't it? Cuts are coming. They might not be the cuts the terrible cuts we've had, because under Duncan Smith and Cameron, that were terrible cuts. But that might not be terrible in that way, but it won't be nice. It'll be quite awful. And remember, there's not much left to cut. What else can be cut? people are crying out for a few peanuts. I mean, youth centres are desperately needed. I was actually I witnessed the aftermath of a stabbing in Islington on Saturday, and it's still haunting me to some extent. No, not a lot, but it's quite terrible. And you know, this is really, I mean, I'm usually not in that kind of. I usually don't mix around with the kind of people who are. Like that, but more and more of just finding this all the time. These are the horrors of the social inequality, homelessness, poverty, desperation, mental health, and this will carry on without, you know, the promise of people, you know, getting social housing, of more social, and the promise of people getting youth centres, the promise of people getting more medical health and more mental health centres and more social assistance and more entertainment centres and more gymnasiums and more social help and more, I don't know, elderly help, social care, but not only for the elderly but for the people with social problems, you know. In fact, really, I mean, it's really time to use the Marxist term socialism against capitalism, because otherwise we're falling into the trap of compartmentalizing old versus young, and you know, and
they're doing that right now.
Yeah,
they're doing that right now.
Oh, so youth crime is suddenly compartmentalized, right? But those young people are part of a family, have parents and grandparents. And therefore, right, it isn't something separate. And when they talk about asylum seekers, they have families, and they have families, and when they work in an area, right, they start to connect with people. So if some of them, right, get their permits and they start working either as hospital porters or as park assistants or that, they'll start to make friends, right, with the at least initially with the less bigoted ones, and then maybe later, after a few years, with the more bigoted ones, right? Because this is the natural function of human beings, and then, right, those people will be connected. So this division just won't work, and that's why in the inner cities it doesn't work very well, because people live with each other. I look at the youngsters, which I never saw when I was in the early 60s, when I was a child. I saw these apartheid divisions. Now I see a 12-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-old mixing completely naturally, because they've grown up together, and that is what right-wing people, bigots, conservatives, and that can't stand. This horrifies them. This keeps them awake at night, because it's too late. The horse is bolted. They can shut the door, but there's no horse there left, and they don't want that. They're scared of that. They say this far, no further.
Yeah, one of my belief is this: one of the factors why we're in this situation with cuts, reduction is, I will call it the big lie, right? It's this perception. Yeah, it's humans are amazing, right? Why do they perpetuate this lie about Father Christmas, the Tooth Fairy? Right?
Oh, hang on, and you're getting a bit. Oh, this is a little bit, you know, a bit. Watch it. Okay, yeah.
Right.
All right, yeah.
The people that the 34.
You're on notice.
Yeah. The 34,000 people plus that's been killed in Gaza, which nothing's been said.
No, nothing.
Right. Right.
Rent-a-kill.
Right. So the big lie. Yeah. So this big lie. So another one of the big lies.
Just huge American milkshakes, right, from American factories, right, raining down on them, right? Banana, chocolate, you know, blackcurrant flavored milkshakes.
Blows their heads off and kills all their family and maims their dog, you know, and destroys all of the landscape.
Well, if that's the kind of milkshake that we're being given, I'll stick to orange juice.
And it's funny, that's how they that's how they coat it, and that's how. So the big lie is, one of the big lies, the economic big lie, every 10 years prices double, right? Minimum it doubles. If you talk about a house, I don't know, if you go back to the 80s to now, I don't know how many times the house prices, it's more than double. It's like 100 times what it was before, right? So people are constantly being told every day things are going to get cheaper and we're going to give you the same money, right? But this is what you got to do. You got to have 10% cuts in your expenditure. Now every year, if you do 10% cut, 10%, after a while you won't be there. It doesn't matter how much money they give you, right? They'll give you the same money all of the time, or they'll give you the same money plus 2%, right? But the price actually that rose, it's actually 10%, right? So you're always 8%. That's why. What percentage rate are the doctors asking for their pay rise?
I don't know.
35%.
Okay.
Right? You've heard that, right? And that's the amount you need. That's the 35% is what you need.
Just remember that doctors and architects, I think, have spent maybe 5 years at university rather than usual 3. It's a long time, and they take out massive loans. Now they need to pay off those loans as well as feed themselves, as well as buy equipment, as well as buy journals, as well as have transport, as well as you know, pay for their rent, but the paying back the loans is very big. So it seems like, yes, they're well off, but they're really actually not that well off. And as we think they are. They're, okay, yes, they're well off compared to somebody who's unemployed and someone who's on minimum wage and that. But they're not very well off for the amount of stress they have. Right. And remember, a long time ago, Tories doctors were actually Tory. They didn't want the NHS. Now you'll find the Tories are probably more socialist than Jeremy Corbyn. They hate the Tories. They hate them. And they use them as a dartboard.
Starmer actually said that one of the policies is that it's going to have the utilities is going to be run by the government, right? I forget the word he used. So we're going to have.
We'll see about that.
So
okay.
So he's going to take over the. So you'll have.
A government running the water company. Well, maybe he'll do one socialist thing.
And what did Jeremy Corbyn say? Isn't that what Jeremy Corbyn said? He said, you know, bring it back into.
Jeremy Corbyn, boo, Jeremy, boo.
Yeah, but Jeremy Corbyn, he lost the election, and he caused all that trouble, and he likes Hamas and the IRA, I don't know, I think so, and all these bad guys, and he likes Russia, and he don't like NATO, and he's bad, and he doesn't like Jewish people at all. He doesn't like them at all. In fact, he was a Reichsführer in the in the Waffen-SS. He's a terrible person, Jeremy Corbyn, and he wants redistribution of wealth. Which actually is worse than the whole lot of them. Whether the rest are true, I don't care, but that's the worst one. He wants to redistribute rich people's wealth.
Talking about educational fee. Did you remember Biden? One of Biden's pledges was that he was going to write off the American students' fees. he didn't manage to get to do that. And remember Nick Clegg?
He actually, Biden did something different from the very different from what Smarmy wants to do, because he actually wanted to incorporate the left. He did well in the election because the left wing, like Ocasio-Cortez and
All right, just say left wing, yeah.
the left wing in America, Bernie Sanders wing, right? That they was bitterly opposed to, but actually brought them in with this reduction act, with this
for the
and the green deal and things like that, and they were quite happy. But now is going very now is going quite far to the right in terms of the social sort of democratic terms, and is actually leaving the left quite disgruntled. The left wing of the Democrat Party are feeling disgruntled, like here, but maybe not as much. But they're still feeling fairly disgruntled. The only really big dividing line, right, is now that medieval abortion brought in by Trump and the sort of and the religious fundamentalists. So really, he's actually really still liberal. But then again, he shot himself in the foot with about Palestine. So really,
Have you heard the latest about the negotiation and the ceasefire?
Yeah, Netanyahu just he's now reliant on his far right people, and he just wanted. I think he wants to carry on the war. He's got another 2 years, and he just wants to carry on the war just to be in power. It's so selfish and so petty and so nasty. They'll just carry on killing people, and some of the extreme right wingers, who believe in the Torah, and they want to get rid of the Amaleks from their biblical enemies.
But 50% of the world, probably more than that, right? At least 50% of the world is on the side of the Gaza.
But
Right?
that's not the powerful countries that sell weapons. That's morally they've become a pariah state morally, but where money and weapons are concerned, coming from sort of America and then also Britain, France and Germany, maybe Japan possibly,
Look, there's quite a few places.
It's only cutting off the weapons that will do it.
There's quite a few places where McDonald's and KFC and Coca-Cola are having problems because people are boycotting.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Boycott donation.
Now, meanwhile, over here, we mentioned, okay, we
Barclays
mentioned.
Bank is having paint thrown over it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. And there's lots of huge encampments. There's an encampment outside Hackney Town Hall. I saw one at what's that in East London University.
Okay, East London. Let's say East London.
There was what's that, Marion Westfield, and I should think they're all over the place now.
Right, but it's not been publicised.
No.
So there's a slow movement.
No, especially not during the election. No, nothing. You won't hear anything about it.
Right.
It's a denoticed, isn't it? It's taboo. It's just censored. Anything to do with Palestinian justice is censored in the way like that South African, the ANC was censored until a change came near the end, and then suddenly Mandela became the hero. But I remember the times when he was seen as a monster. Nothing was really said about it.
And the IRA and
IRA, yeah, they were seen monsters, terrible, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, monsters and terrible and that,
Right, but there was a slow burn going on, and
I mean, and maybe a few of them were, but most of them were actually trying to get justice.
Yeah.
And how else could they have done it? I mean, there was a civil rights marches from working class Catholics following the ones in Atlanta, Georgia, hoping that they could have a nice, peaceful, you know, and say, look, please give us more homes, give us more justice, give us something like that. And well, we know what happens, don't we? They're murdered in cold blood.
Right. So we're back to that human thing of perpetrating it. Okay, in like the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, etc. But there's also a reverse where, like you said, the D notice where Gaza is not talked about. It's a massive injustice.
Have you noticed there's no more talk about Afghanistan and there's no more talk about Iraq? In fact, there's so many parts of the world, right, that just have not been mentioned.
I tell you what.
Hang on, listen to this, right? Hamas is so meant to be so terrible. I'm not saying they're wonderful because they're not very nice, but they're fighting for freedom, right? So they're terrible, right? Now, but the Taliban was just handed in. Okay, goodbye. Yeah, I'll trade you war. Okay, no, goodbye. Finished. Oh, that's all right. So, hang on a minute. Taliban. The Taliban are you know, they're I mean, there's Christian there's Christian churches open in the Gaza Strip under Hamas. There wouldn't be any under the Taliban. Under the Taliban. Taliban are left there. Okay, that's it. Goodbye. End. Goodbye. Finished. Oh yes, they made some moral thing. Good. And what about Iraq? Well, nothing's mentioned about them anymore. There's nothing. So hang on. So just like all these other colonials, nothing's mentioned. Why not? Why are they not mentioned?
Right. So this Gaza thing.
And how come that Rwanda has become a wonderful, heroic, safe country when it had a massive massacre that was on our screens? You know, one of the worst massacres in all. Isn't it? It's the Orwellian manipulation.
Can I tell you, right, that last year, before the government, actually during when the government started this Rwanda thing, I went to a Commonwealth event where all the countries of the Commonwealth was there, and the host, the most prominent one, the host was the minister from Rwanda. I took lovely pictures, right? A lovely event and stuff, but I dare not publish it, right? Because even in my community, right, to be assisting, what can I say? What can I say? It's like me being the SS and taking my brothers and killing them off in prison. You know, I'm going to be part of the conspiracy that there is Santa Claus. What are you talking about? Of course there's Santa Claus. Yeah, of course there's a Tooth Fairy. Rwanda is fantastic. It's perfect, right? We should praise them. We should give them. You can't do that.
But it was Rwanda and Burundi were Belgian colonies, and they did just like they did in every other British colonies and all the other colonies, dividing one group against another one. So they saw the more oppressed group were the Tutsis, and they gave the Hutus positions above them, but then sometimes twisted it round, and that resentment was made and carried on after the colonialism.
Generation and generation and generation. Yeah, and that's what they do. That's what they do. And back to Afghanistan. See, there was a group of people that was just left behind recently. The British just forgot about them. But anyway, back to the is the equivalent of the people who the interpreters the Afghan interpreters who helped the British in Afghanistan,
Afghan
right?
interpreters, yeah.
Oh, my friend, we love you. What, yo, they make them feel, and then they just left behind.
But what about the Kurdish who fought, who were the people who bravely defeated ISIS? The Kurds, they're called terrorists. Why are the Kurds? They are the people who actually fought ISIS.
I know. Listen, the reason why
They were heroes at that time.
everybody hates the Kurds, right? We're their section. Oh, they gave Saddam Hussein gassed them, right?
Oh,
And
guess what weapons who sold Saddam Hussein the weapons?
either Britain or America.
Yeah, and you remember this thing where they were wondering whether this export was this export to Iraq, whether it was a pipeline or a gun.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
remember that
yeah, yeah.
thing?
When it all started.
Yeah. And that was from a British company
Yeah, yeah.
selling. Yeah.
So the story with the Kurds was this, right?
Yeah, and you know the first people that to drop gas. That one in Halabja that bastard Saddam Hussein did, right?
Yeah.
Was terrible. But the first time that they'd ever been dropped gas was in the First World War. They were at an uprising,
Yeah.
right, against British rule, King Farouk, and the biplanes were dropping. That's where he
Probably
learnt all his
mustard-
stuff from.
mustard
gas was dropped on them.
All right.
That's where he learnt all his stuff from.
Right, but the Kurds, the story behind the Kurds, what I heard was this: the British said to them, yes, it was okay to go and overtake Saddam Hussein, right? And then they I think they started to attack and what have you, and then Saddam Hussein says, these damn Kurds, let me just gas them, and they never got the support from Britain. I think it was Britain that was behind them, telling them, go fight Saddam, get your piece of land and what have you, right? And Saddam just said, what? Gas, right? So both sides, right? Everybody hates the Kurds, even here in Finsbury Park, from Turkey, their section, they can't even call themselves, the party that they had is now banned. Just the same way like the in Gaza, they're banned as well. The people who run Gaza, right?
Run Gaza, Hamas.
Hamas, just the same way. Hamas was they were legitimately voted
They
in,
won the election, yeah.
right? And then suddenly a thing was called and they was made illegal. Same with the Kurds.
Yes, they were voted, and they were given a lot of assistance by Benjamin Netanyahu, who wanted to destroy the secular socialist PLO.
So they were used, right, and then
and dumped.
abused.
Used
Yeah,
and abused.
yeah.
And who knows? One day they could become heroes again if they decide, if the great and the good decide.
But
'Cause
why is
these
it?
things change, don't
But
they?
why is it sane people or intelligent people are perpetrating, right, this fact that Hamas, right, half the world says they're freedom fighters. Why are you? They were legitimately there until somebody decide, right? Israel decide to call them terrorists, and everybody decide
But Palestine does not occupy Israel.
Israel occupies Palestine.
Yeah. So the Orwellianness every day, the unreality, the upside down truth is every single day, and they're saying, right? They're saying we want a peace. Can the occupation forces leave?
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, even if nobody says can the occupation forces leave, the occupation forces should leave because it's immoral. So they should leave. Not by being asked to. They shouldn't be there. They're occupation forces.
And by the same whatever.
If I look, this is it's amazing, isn't it? You know, the Tories are against squatting, aren't they? You know, even empty properties where nobody's there. But imagine, right, somebody coming and actually, right, you know, a burglar comes into your place and just lives there and occupies it and tells you what to do. You know, that's wrong.
That's
So,
what
and if you fight back, then what? You're a terrorist.
Yeah.
You're what? You fight? Of course you fought back.
Right.
So now I'm going to send weapons to the burglar who's living in your who's in your place to help to help beat you every day for fighting because it's your place. Is that morality?
So the modern day Enoch Powell is Nigel Farage, right? Who, when it comes to the Conservative Party,
there's always going to be one. I mean, maybe in 10 years there'll be another name that we don't know. But there'll be the same. It'll be the same attitude, and that it'll just have a different kind of reptilian face.
and it's so deep, right? And it's so I don't know, in depth, and it's so hidden, just like the royal the person who royal assistant who says no, where do you really come from?
Where do you really come from?
Yeah. And did you see
You know when I meet people like that, sometimes I get fed up and I say, look, I came from my mother's womb. Where did you come from? And they get very annoyed. And I say, well, what's a silly question? Where does I said, look, basically there's birds, right? And they lay eggs, right? And we're human beings, and we're mammals, and we come from the womb. That's it. Where does someone come? What geographical location? Well, I don't see those birds, right? I see them mixing together. I don't see them having any geographical location. Well, or that's marked out by pencil.
You know what? You've got to have the ears to hear sometimes. And I listen very carefully to some people, and they may innately and they feel so comfortable with it because other people tend to repeat it, right? And then
Where do you come from?
right, and then there's other things they would do, and then you'd realize that's just the tip of a massive iceberg which they're hiding, or the elephant in the room, or look at Diane Abbott. Look how they treated Diane Abbott, right? And it was just at the last minute.
She is going to get such a huge majority. It'll be embarrassing. It'll be embarrassing for her detractors.
But what?
They'll have to pretend to be friendly to her, like the kings coming down to Bethlehem with the
and
March.
And that's a good example of how people in against Diane Abbott, they suddenly jump on a bandwagon, saying even Claire Starmer, is part of that. He has actually shown, he's part of the establishment. In order to be part of the establishment.
No, look, she's still quite a loyal supporter of
Labour.
of real Labour, of Corbynism. But she doesn't say it, but he knows that, and basically, like a McCarthyite, he wants to wipe out all the real socialists, so that he can have a social democratic party like the SDP. So rather than have a breakaway SDP from Labour, which didn't work, but was honest, because they honestly, the Gang of Four, they broke away.
Yeah, I remember.
He wants to complete Blair's job to turn. He wants to turn the. He wants to turn Labour, that was started by the unions, right, into a social democratic party from above. That's like in the European model.
I tell you what, we're going to leave it there.
Yeah.
So it's goodbye from me,
and it's goodbye from
him.